I'm actually very proud to be the lead sponsor of the Fight for 15 bill in the House. It's been filed on the Senate side by Ken Donnelly of Cambridge. I think we ended up with over 80 co-sponsors of the bill in the House and the Senate, which is a huge number to show you that there's quite a bit of support for raising the minimum wage. We're also looking at the bill not just raising the minimum wage, but also it would abolish the sub-minimum wage over time, where if you work in food industry, service industry, you're only making about $3.75 an hour. It's supposed to be tipped, so we're trying to close that gap.
I think folks have a collective understanding that here in the United States of America, we should have a certain standard of living. And people who work 40 hours a week, trying to do things the right way, should be able to make ends meet. Here in the city of Worcester, there was a study done in 2016 that indicated in order to afford a 2-bedroom apartment, you had to make $20.42 an hour. And we're talking about $15 an hour. Now, there's some challenges for some of the small businesses, but within the current legislation that's been filed by State Representative Dan Donahue of Worcester, there's some accommodations based on the size of your business. According to some of the numbers that we've gathered together, an increase to $15 an hour would account for about 30,000 families in the city, which is close to 40% of the city. I participate in some demonstrations in Boston. Civil disobedience is part of the American way. It's how you bring things to light. And, I ended up being arrested along with Senator Eldridge. But sometimes you have to go out with the people and stand with the people, regardless of what the political risk is. And if it takes that type of a stance to help bring attention to the issue, that's something that I'm willing to do for issues that are going to have a significant economic impact. There's a fundamental value at play here, and that's that hard work should be able to get you a standard of living where you don't need fuel assistance, where you don't need vouchers for daycare. You shouldn't be working 40 hours a week and still receiving some type of needs or means-based assistance.
I understand the intentions. I applaud them, but I think they're sort of missing the mark. It eliminates jobs. The fastest way to eliminate jobs is to make the cost of labor more expensive. When you think about that, if you're putting a minimum wage of $15, you're going back to the business owner and saying now you got to come up with more. You got to produce more, or in some way cut back, or get more money out of your customers. But how elastic are the customers?
As the wage just increased to $11. I was working with a youth jobs coalition right here in Worcester at the Boys and Girls Club. And they were saying how that increase to $11 means a 20% cut to youth jobs this summer, which equals 80 jobs. Just in Worcester, 80 jobs just in Worcester with that small hike to $11. And you see how important youth jobs are. Imagine that for, raising that to $15, the impact it's going to have for youth jobs, the impact that's going to have on real jobs for business owners. You're going to see a lot of people losing their jobs. You're going to see an increase in prices.
When I went to Worcester State College, I worked overnight over at CVS Pharmacy. I don't even remember what I got paid. It wasn't much. But it wasn't a job for me to pay for my family. It was a job for me to support myself as I went through school. It's really not. These are supposed to be entry-level jobs. So I think I don't think it really helps or accomplishes what it wants to do. It's a road that's paved with good intentions, but at the end of the day, we're going to have less skilled young workers entering the workforce because they won't have that background experience. And it's certainly not going to drive more businesses to hiring. In fact, they're going to find ways to cut back on the need for labor. You go to the grocery store now, you see it in every line, checkout, you can self-checkout. That's what we end up pushing with it. And that's unfortunate because I think it takes away people's ability to work. I understand there's financial implications, but I think the best way to solve that is not to tax, spend other people's money, have unfunded mandates, which brings down your ability for economic growth. We need actually more growth, and that way it's a function of less laborers and therefore more demand for laborers, which actually increases minimum wage on its own.
I mean, the truth of the matter is that making minimum wage in the state of Massachusetts, it's just, we are a high-cost state, and $11 isn't enough. We need to continue to move forward. I was very proud to support the $11 the last session, but we can't just stop there, and we really need to make sure we're moving forward and make sure that our working families have enough money to provide for themselves, to provide for their families, and to be bigger economic players in our system. I think some of the critiques that of it is that it might raise costs for businesses, and one of the things we looked at, we raised minimum wage to $11 an hour. And right now in Massachusetts, we have one of the lowest unemployment rates we've ever had in like 30 years, 2.8%, I think, in Worcester itself. So, what you see with minimum wage increases, and other states have seen it, we've seen it historically, is that when you do raise the minimum wage, people go out and they use that money. Unfortunately, low-income people aren't saving usually. They usually have to immediate costs, immediate needs. So when you actually raise the minimum wage, normally you see more economic activity, more economic growth.
And I think that, given all those factors, the fight for 15 is what they call it, I think is going to be successful.
The chances of it going up to $15 an hour is, I would probably say, highly likely, just based on the current structure of the House and the Senate and in the state. So I put my money on that it's going up. Is it practical? Is it prudent? I don't believe it's the most prudent decision.
From speaking to local businesses, a $15 minimum wage is going to be harmful to our local economy.
It's a great proposal, right? It takes it over time, over a couple of years, to raise it all the way up to 15 and make sure it's fair and balanced. We need to continue to move forward.